ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Buffalo SportsCenter. I am Don, and today we are going to talk about 5 players that the Bills should consider keeping, cutting, or trading. But, of course, before we get to the video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. We're going to keep trying to grow this community one by one, so every subscriber and like helps. Anyways, let's keep on moving now by talking about the first big player that the Bills need to consider trading or cutting or keeping this offseason, and that is safety Jordan Poyer. He is going to be an unrestricted free agent this offseason, and he may be looking for a pay raise as well. Last offseason, he switched agents to super agent Drew Rosenhaus, and that wasn't necessarily a welcome sign by Bills Mafia. A lot of the fans felt that maybe Poyer could be looking to get a significant pay raise, and this will probably be his last contract before retirement, by the way. So, of course, I understand why Jordan Poyer is looking for that bag. Poyer, though, needs to stay in Buffalo, and I hope he does, because he was instrumental in the back of that defense last season. Even after Micah Hyde went down with an injury, the Bills' secondary was still one of the better secondaries in the NFL. They were above average in most statistical categories, and while they did dip in form towards the end of the year, as injuries eventually caught up to this unit, Poyer remained a constant. He was playing through a multitude of injuries, including an elbow, a shoulder, a knee, you name it. Every week it felt like Poyer had some new nagging injury, and despite that, he still played at a Pro Bowl level. He had 4 interceptions last season. The Bills went undefeated when he was playing. They went 12-0 in the regular season when Poyer started. They went 1-1, of course, in the playoffs, with that loss coming to the Cincinnati Bengals, where it seemed like the entire defense was just terrible. They were horrendous and terrible. And for Poyer, I feel like now that the Bills are going to be even hungrier for that Super Bowl, maybe he comes back to Buffalo on a 1-year deal. And I would absolutely hope so, because the Bills, they really do need him. They really do need him. And I think, especially after he posted that new banner art on his Twitter that was a picture of Michael Jordan in that Last Dance year, maybe he comes back to Buffalo on a cheaper 1-year deal as sort of a last dance for him in this organization. And because of all of that, I think the Bills should absolutely 100% keep Jordan Poyer. But it will be very difficult to keep him around. Pro Football Focus, PFF, projects to him making about $8 million next year for the next couple of seasons after, actually. And the Bills are, of course, very tight on cap space. So this is going to be very difficult for the Bills and him to deal with. But I have all confidence in General Manager Brandon Beane to get it done. Let's keep on going now by talking about the next biggest free agent for the Bills this offseason, and that is running back Devin Singletary. There will be a very deep running back market this offseason, but I highly doubt, given that the Bills are currently in negative cap space right now, that they will make a swing for a top-tier running back. And that's a bad thing, because Singletary is not necessarily the most explosive running back. He's not a very consistent number 1 running back for a supposed Super Bowl contender like Buffalo. He lacks that speed on the outside. He doesn't do a great enough job finding holes on the inside. But he does remain very consistent. He is still right around above average in the NFL. He averaged 4.6 yards per carry last season. He had over 800 rushing yards, which on paper, that's good. That is really good. And for what the Bills were looking for, which was a rotational backfield with Singletary splitting reps with James Cook, those are fine stats. The problem was Singletary just wasn't getting involved enough, and neither was James Cook, whether that be down to obscenely terrible play calling from Ken Dorsey or just inconsistent play from the Bills' offensive line. Either way, Singletary just didn't show enough again to warrant him getting a big contract from Buffalo. Now, if he is looking for something under $5 million or $6 million a season, I would be willing to bring him back, but for anything that much more than that, I think the Bills need to walk away from Singletary. And that's why I think, given what the market's going to look like this offseason, I think the Bills are going to cut Devin Singletary. They are not going to bring him back for another season. They've seen enough from him on his rookie deal. And they may look to James Cook, who I think has a bigger upside than Singletary. Cook has more speed. He's a better pass catcher out of the backfield. Whereas Singletary, he's never been that prolific catching the ball. He did have a career high in 280 yards reception-wise this season, but that's not enough for me to warrant him coming back on anything over $6 million a season. The Bills are tight in cap space. They cannot afford to waste any money on a running back who they know what they'll give them, because Singletary will not give you that Pro Bowl level performance in a season. Maybe James Cook can. Let's play with some house money. Draft a running back in day 3 of the draft this offseason to replace Singletary. That's my personal take. And let's keep on going now with linebacker Tremaine Edmunds. He's one of the best off-the-ball linebackers last season. And it's because of that where I worry that he may be asking for Roquan Smith kind of money. Roquan Smith got paid over $100 million on a long-term deal with the Baltimore Ravens. And I hope that Edmunds doesn't ask for that. Of course, players are entitled to what they want. Well, they're entitled to getting a certain level of financial benefits. And the way Tremaine Edmunds played last season, I think he does warrant a bigger contract than what he's been getting on his rookie deal. And Edmunds, he did have a mini breakout season last year. He had a career high in tackles. He was one of the best and actually not missing any. He only missed 6 tackles last season, which is excellent for a Bills defense that is one of the worst in that statistic. And for Edmunds, he really has a great partnership with Matt Milano. Keeping those two guys together was important for the Bills this past season, because when one or the other was out, namely that middle of the season game against the New York Jets, the Bills defense really struggled. The Bills do not have an in-house replacement for Tremaine Edmunds, which would make losing him even tougher and harder on this team. I hope the Bills can keep him. I have a sneaking suspicion, though, that he's going to go out to greener pastures and look for a big-time pay raise. But for the Bills' sake, they absolutely do need to keep him. Although I don't know if this is actually going to happen. For the Bills, they need to keep him. They need to work towards a middle-of-the-road contract with Edmunds. Hopefully, he'll take a short-term pay cut to try to win that Super Bowl. If not, I can see teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers, who really have struggled with their linebacker player over the last couple seasons, going out and paying big money to get Edmunds from Buffalo. But for Buffalo, they need to keep Edmunds if they want to keep this Super Bowl window open. And let's move on to our 4th player to talk about here, and that is veteran slot receiver Cole Beasley, who the Bills brought back towards the latter part of last season. And for Buffalo, this makes sense, number 1, because he knows the offense. Number 2, he will likely come back on a cheap deal. Number 3, he's a fan favorite here in Buffalo. And number 4, he could help tutor Khalil Shakir as he hopefully takes the next step after a very promising rookie season. I like Beasley more than Isaiah McKenzie, mainly because McKenzie drops the ball a lot. Cole Beasley is not as bad at that. McKenzie, he is faster, but for Cole Beasley, he is much more consistent. And there's a reason why Josh Allen, on most big-time third downs over the last couple of seasons, throws to Cole Beasley. And that's because he's sure-handed, he is very consistent in his route running, and he just has that good partnership with Josh Allen that I don't think Isaiah McKenzie was able to replicate this past season. And for McKenzie's sake, he had a chance to really solidify his role as the starting slot receiver for Buffalo, but he did not. He didn't even come close to that. He was one of the most maligned players on this Bills offense this past season. And that's a shame, because I think McKenzie's a real nice guy, and he seems like a funny dude, especially that one First We Feast interview that he did with Gabe Davis, where they were trying not to lie on camera without eating some spicy wings. He seemed pretty fun. I'm sure he is. He's a locker room guy. But Beasley right now just makes a lot more sense economically. And from the results we've gotten over the last couple seasons, I think Beasley once again wins in that category. Now, finally, we got to talk about with Beasley. Do we keep him? And of course, cheap 1-year deal. Keep all the way for Beasley. I really want to keep seeing fans chant Beasley every time he catches a ball. Those were funny, especially when I went to that wild card game. That was pretty cool. So let's keep him around just for that. And for all the other reasons that I just mentioned here. So let's move on now to our final player here, and that is right guard for the Bills, Roger Saffold, who really struggled this season after coming over in free agency from the Tennessee Titans. Roger Saffold, he seemed like he could have been something. I don't know why he was named to the Pro Bowl this year, probably mainly because of name recognition, but Saffold in Tennessee was one of the most consistent linemen in the NFL. He was always solid in pressure numbers, not giving up any quarterback hits, and so on and so forth. But this past year, he was worst on the Bills in both categories. He gave up 4 quarterback hits. That was most on the Bills' offensive line. And looking down here, he gave up 30 quarterback pressures. That was also the most for any offensive lineman on the Bills. He was not a very good player, and I really do expect the Bills, given that Saffold is also going to be 35 by the time this next season rolls around, maybe they keep him to serve as a very cheap backup, but for Buffalo's sake and for these fans' sakes, they need to go into the draft and get a guy, get another athletic freak, though one that is better than Spencer Brown, of course, who Brown is an entirely different story. He is, like Saffold, struggling mightily, and unfortunately for Saffold, he was on a 1-year deal. He's a free agent this offseason, and I do not believe that the Bills should bring him back. He needs to be cut by Buffalo. They need to get younger through the draft. They need to replace Saffold because he just struggled mightily. And once again, I do not understand why he was named to the Pro Bowl when he was a part of one of the worst offensive lines in football. So that's it here for this video. You guys got to see 5 players that I think the Bills should either cut, keep, or trade. We saw Beasley, we saw Saffold, Tremaine Edmunds, Devin Singletary, and Jordan Poyer. Tell me your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below. I was Don. This was Buffalo SportsCenter. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.